I'm here to tell you how to fix the NBA. I've been watching the NBA from the early 2000s, from Allen Iverson being at the 76ers. My cousin got me into it, and I was just fascinated by it. Like this sport where it's so fast, end to end, high scoring, and I've been following it ever since then. Unfortunately, I'm a Sixers fan, which is not the greatest, especially when you had like little bits of hope when we had the Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, with Jimmy Butler, and then that went to crap. But anyway, what I'm trying to pitch is maybe dividing the league into two separate leagues. So right now you have the East and the West Conference. They have 15 teams each in them. Now, there is a plan in the next couple of years to expand from 30 teams to 32 teams. Currently, there are 82 games in a season. And that's just the regular season without the playoffs. Apparently, they've said if they do bring in 32 teams, then they're thinking about reducing the games to maybe like 76 games, which 6 games, it's not that much. What I think they should do, just for the betterment of the sport, I think if you divided basically each East and West Conference into a top and a bottom half, so you have the main and then you have like everyone else, what that does is it actually will generate more revenue in a weird way. Now stick with me. So in a lot of American sports, franchising is the way. It's a way for owners to make sure that their revenues are stable and there's no sort of impact of relegation and whatnot. Now, I actually think this could be really good for teams. And the reason is from the spectator point of view and also the revenue with bums on seats. So I'll give you an example. In 2014, I went to New York with my mum and my brother, and I'm a Sixers fan. And I was like, Madison Square Garden, obviously iconic venue. The Knicks were playing the Sixers in that Christmas period when we went. So I was like, go on, we're going to go. Me and my brother managed to somehow get tickets for $18 each to this game. And they weren't like the super nosebleeds, but they weren't obviously like down on the lower tier. So we went. It was half empty because these were arguably two of the worst sides in the Eastern Conference. And Melo was playing, but he missed so many shots in that game. And the quality of basketball was shocking, to be completely honest with you. And even though it was like December time, you felt as though these teams were kind of in that tanking sort of period where no one really cares and what it is. Now, from my perspective, if you were to basically break up the league into, let's say it does get expanded to 32 teams. What you could do is have 8 teams in sort of the upper league for the NBA. So 8 teams in the West, 8 teams in the East. And then you have a lower league, 8 teams in the West, 8 teams in the East. And then what you introduce is relegation and promotion. So the top 2 teams have the opportunity from the lower leagues to get promoted. And what this does is it introduces jeopardy. And by introducing jeopardy, it means that games at the end of the season, or even when it's against 2 crap teams, people aren't going to just try and tank, because ideally you want to be playing in that top league because of the extra revenue and the extra, you're going to have better players playing in that top league. And let's say that top league gets different sponsorships from the bottom league. They might have higher sponsorship because, the stars are all playing in that league. So there's an extra incentive to stay in that league. So now games where it's against, your 14th and 15th seed in the current format, they actually become worth something. You'll see fans turning up because they don't want to see their team go down. You'll see more interest from the media talking about what happens if this player goes out, what's going to happen to this player if their team goes down, blah, blah, blah. Similarly, from the bottom leagues, you might think, oh, what about the teams right at the bottom? Like, what's their incentive if you're at the bottom of the bottom league? Well, kind of how it is now, where if you do end up in that position, that's where the draft comes in. So the draft works in the same way from the bottom league upwards. So you're going to get more younger players from the draft coming in and joining the worst teams in the league. But for the money, because there's going to be more revenue generated in the top leagues, there's going to be more eyes on it, no one will want to really stay in the bottom league. And I'm not saying teams want to do that now, but you see a lot of teams tanking. I think this gets rid of the tanking just so easily. And owners will have a different focus on how they actually, go about building a squad, building a roster. And I just think it would make for a better spectacle. Michael Jordan has been against load management. I remember him saying, like, every night he tried to perform because he was like, there might be someone in that crowd who this is their first game and they never get to see them again. And imagine if he turns up and plays crap or anything. And imagine if he's resting. He knows they've come to watch him, really and truly. But now, this comes on to my second point, load management. So load management has become a thing because people are getting more injuries in the league. The league's become a lot quicker. And although you can say it's probably become less physical, you get a lot of strain because everyone's more athletic nowadays. And so everyone's pushing their body to extra limits. What that does is you will get more injuries. And we've seen teams, load manage with restricted minutes and whatnot for certain games and certain players. What that does is, going back to Michael Jordan's quote, fans are going to get annoyed if they go to a game and they're just like, oh, they're going to be load management. We don't want to go to this game because it's one of the ones that they're probably going to load manage. Or they do go to a game and they're disappointed because the star player that they've gone to see is being rested. So by effectively having two leagues, it means that you reduce the number of games. By reducing the number of games, yes, you might say, oh, the revenue goes down and whatnot. But like I said, you can get more sponsorships in and the quality of the whole league gets actually higher because you've got now day in, day out, game in, game out, you've got players who are actually turning up to actually, play. And so the quality gets better. You're going to have more closer matchups. You're not going to have teams tanking as much. Players are going to be incentivized because there might be different salary caps for the two different leagues. So if you fall down, maybe you have some sort of relegation clause like you do in football where, your wage drops by 50%. Players won't want that. They'll be playing hard every fucking game. Whereas now a lot of players can dictate where they want, especially the star players, right? So I just think from financially, it kind of makes sense. From viewership, it makes sense. I think the only people that are going to be annoyed with this are the owners who, they might say, oh, well, if we go into a lower league, it'll be the owners that don't have any ambition for their team. I think they're the ones that are going to have a moan about this. But that's my pitch to Adam Silver, man. Like, if you brought this in, you'd be able to almost abolish, you could finally abolish as well, the 65 game rule, which since it got introduced a couple of years ago to actually combat the load management era, a lot of players have started falling foul of it. So in 23-24, when it was introduced, Giannis fell foul of it, LeBron fell foul of it, Dame Lillard fell foul of it, and even Steph Curry fell foul of it. So all of these people were ineligible to be part of the MVP combo. In 24-25, there were only 84 players that met the 65 game rule. Now, the 65 game rule is not just you just play 1 minute as well. You have to play a minimum of 20 minutes a game. So yeah, 84 players were ineligible for that. And then as of this year, you've seen a slight shift where Luka Doncic, for instance, was given an exception. So was Kay Cunningham. But if you start doing these exceptions, it's almost like the salary tax, like the luxury salary tax thing you have, right? Then people won't really care if they're just like, oh, fuck it, we'll just pay more money. If once you start making exceptions, that's where rules break down. I just think that dividing the league into two separate leagues, it just makes sense. It just makes sense. And I'd love for you guys to scrutinize me. Drop it in the comments below. Let me know if I'm chatting shit. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know what other fix you think the NBA could make, because I just feel like the NBA has so much potential. We've seen NBA Europe even happening now, but I just feel like this could make sure that it stays elite and you see bums on seats and you see crowds packed for every fucking game. Anyway, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm coming with daily videos on this channel. But until tomorrow, peace!